Hey guys, I'm Andy Wardlaw. I'm the producer of the Lamplight Radio Play. So I'm going to be going over some of the music editing and music choices we did in our most recent episode, episode 8, called Small Town Immortals. And what I'm really going to be focusing on here is how to use library music and make it sound more like a movie score. So at Lamplight, most of the time, our music comes from a library. We've used a composer in the past, and honestly, if you can get a good composer, it is the best way to go. But the realities of what they are, we wind up using a music library for most of these pieces. So for this episode, we used the APM Music Library, which is a fantastic library. Highly recommend them. But even with a great library, there are differences that you just can't get around between that and having a composer. So let's go through the differences. To me, the biggest difference is working with theme. So a composer, they can take a theme and they can work with that theme throughout the entire piece. So they can do different variations of it. So they can slow it down, they can speed it up, they can change the instrumentation. Then if you tie a theme to a character, or say a scene or a location or a type of conflict, you can actually evolve the music the way your story evolves. Now, when you're pulling from a music library, you're not going to have like 50 different variations of a music cue. You may have a couple different ones, but usually you have like a long one, a shorter one, and then there's some versions where they've taken some of the voices out. So there may be a version that's where only the guitars from it, or only the drums. So if you just take a music cue from a music library and decide, oh, this is my character's theme, it'll likely get repetitive. Like there's just not enough variations. That said, there are things you can do that I think will really help it out. So let me play you some of the music that became the bed of the episode. And by the way, I have tweaked the mix on these to bring the music up a little more into the foreground. Don't judge me.
That looked right out of the Civil War, but it was the pond out back that really made her famous. Decades ago, her 8-year-old son drowned in it, and for as long as I can remember, it's been rumored to be haunted. Teens would go party there, occasionally come back with ghost stories until she built a wall around the entire property. The stories didn't go away, though. Today, the only people living in the house are Grace and Wyatt. Wyatt's mom died a few years back. Cancer.
Yeah, so this music cue, you could call it a leitmotif. It is tied into this woman, Grace Magellan, and her pond in the backyard, which is rumored to be haunted. So let me show you how I use this cue multiple times while building on it and keeping it as something new. So, there are going to be very major spoilers ahead. So if you're planning on listening to this episode of Lamplight Radio Play and you haven't heard it yet, go check it out. If you're just here to learn about scoring, that's fine too. Now, Lamplight Radio Play, we call ourselves Quiet Horror. We make it spooky. So the second time we hear that cue, I wanted to add that spooky sound to it. So here's that.
Also a blessing. But a few years later, I was playing with our dog in the pond, and that night I heard Eric's voice outside calling me. I thought I was hearing things, of course, but after several hours of this, I went outside and I could hear him down by the pond. I rushed to the water and there he was, just as fine and as healthy as he could be. And I realized he wasn't alone. There was half the town's dead behind him. So, if you see...
All right, so let's dig into the tracks and I'll show you what's happening. Basically, it is the same cue, but you'll hear in the cue some flutes start playing. And at the same time the flutes come in, we add our deep spooky drone. So that dark drone, you can't just let it sit there. You need to keep the music evolving. And so there's this higher pitched drone that comes in after the low one. And that's just keeping it moving. Okay, and then at the end here, you'll see that actually the Celeste cue goes away entirely, and it just becomes that dark drone for a few seconds. And what that's doing is punctuating probably the most important part of what she says. Now, usually, like the instinct is to hit that hard. She's saying something important. Your instinct is to really mark it with an exclamation point in the music. And instead, this went the other way. which I think is nice because, the change, in a lot of ways, is the change in the music. That's almost more important than what the music does. So,
And I realized he wasn't alone.
so we just have it drop away.
Half the town's dead behind him.
And it's also nice because it's playing with the rhythm a little bit. Often when the music stops and there's a pause, you expect it to slam in hard after. Like you can think of trailers, they do that all the time with their big quiet, 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 boom. And this is setting up that same rhythm, so the music drops away to punctuate the most important line. And then when it comes in, it does have something for that final slam, but it's not a big slam, it's just a nice quiet.
Dead behind him.
All right, so just to recap this section here, we have our main theme, and when we want to change it, we're adding these other sounds to it. Now, you're likely thinking, wait, you can't just play 2 songs at once. It'll just be a mess. And you're right. Part of what makes this work is that the music we're adding is very simple. There's no rhythm to it at all. It's just tone. And also, these aren't just drones. They're dissonant drones. Like, they're ugly. They sound like a bad chord. So when you add them to the first pretty cue, you add something that's intentionally ugly. Like, the audience goes, oh, something's wrong. It doesn't need to sound nice. But it's also worth mentioning another part of what makes it work is that we're adding something very different from the first cue. And if we added another piano or celeste sound, it would probably clash. Now, there are ways to combine cues so they do sound good together. They sound like real songs, but that's out of the scope of this essay. If you're interested, let me know in the comments, and I'll see what I can do. But in the meantime, you don't need to be a musician to try mashing things up. All you need to do is be able to hear it. Trial and error will get you there. That's largely what I do. So experiment, see what works. So the next trick I'm going to show you is the opposite of what we just did. Now, what we just did was we added sounds to create variations. This time we are going to remove sounds to create variations. So let's listen to the final time we hear that leitmotif.
I looked up at the house. Grace was coming with her tea set. A coldness rose up inside me. For a moment, I literally thought I was standing in the water.
Dad, are you coming tonight?
Go.
Dad, was that you?
Go.
Dad?
Go. You can go.
Okay, Dad. Love you.
So this whole section here, these notes ringing out, these are in fact actually just part of the main cue that I've cut up. If I extend all of these out, you'll hear.
A coldness rose up inside me. For a moment, I literally thought I was standing in the water.
All right, so that's just sections of the cue. I just cut out one note. Normally that sounds terrible.
A coldness rose
That
up
doesn't
inside
really
me. For a moment,
So I just doused it in reverb.
a coldness rose up inside me. For a moment, I literally thought I was standing in the water.
Dad, are you coming tonight?
It's stuff we're familiar with, but it doesn't really have a melody of its own. So this section here, this is actually part of the same cue here.
Are you coming tonight?
And what I did was I just cut out a couple of the notes.
Are you coming tonight?
And again, it's still drenched in reverb, so it carries
Dad,
over.
was that you?
What it does is it lets the melody sort of sneak
Go.
back in there
Dad?
before it becomes
Go.
the more normal version.
You can go.
Okay, Dad.
And to me, when it switches to the fuller version at the end, it's a little bit of relief.
Love you.
And let me just show you one other trick here. If you look at this guy over here, this is actually this same section. And what this is, this has a reverse reverb effect on it. So it's like it's reverb where it rings out, except it goes backwards. So you throw the effect on it, sounds a bit like this. It puts a little bit of a rise before that first note.
I looked up at the house. Grace was coming with her tea set. A coldness rose up inside me.
I added this reverse reverb because without it, the cue enters very abruptly. It's bong, and it was jarring. So the reverse reverb, it gives the audience just a little bit of warning that a song's going to start, and so when the note plays, it's not as intrusive. But anyway, let's recap what I did here. I cut out some individual notes of the cue and basically added a reverb effect to hide the edits. There's another section where I removed a note out of the melody and added reverb to hide the edit, just so the melody would sound a little different. And what all of this does is lets you create something that is clearly of the leitmotif. Like it's the same instrumentation, same general chords and sounds, but it's not an exact repeat, it's another variation, and it can keep it fresh. It also allows you to manipulate the pacing a bit to fit your scene. All right, I'm going to go over just one last trick for you. So the last two tricks were about ways to add variations to a leitmotif so you don't get sick of it. This one is about how to use the repetition of a leitmotif in your favor. We're going to talk about a different cue. This cue gets used twice in the piece. The first time is when our main character, Annalise, meets with the ghost of her father. So here's that.
It was shocking how familiar his voice was.
Dad!
I wrapped my arms around him and squeezed as hard as I could. He was solid, but wasn't warm, like hugging a soft mannequin.
How?
I'm glad you came. God damn, look at you. You're a goddamn adult now. It's beautiful.
What have you been doing?
No, me first. Here, come on, let's sit. I heard you hurt your back in an accident.
Yeah, but it's better now. Almost.
He grilled me for the next 10 minutes, until the sky started to turn blue.
All right. It's my bad.
So that's a heartfelt positive cue on a heartfelt positive scene. It has a nice Friday Night Lights, explosions in the sky vibe. It's not a complicated melody at all, but I think it works under the scene. So later, another character meets his dad at the lake, and this one does not go well. And from the get-go, it's off, right? You'll notice there's some spooky winds.
No, you're messing with me.
Then Brian's dad walked out of the water in front of us.
Hey, bud.
I don't understand what's happening.
I'm here, at Grace's pond.
You're real?
Real enough.
I'm sorry. Why the hell is he here?
He saw my dad come out of the lake.
Hey, you! Get out of here!
Whoa, take a breath, buddy. He's not doing anything.
But no, he shouldn't be where you are.
Just calm it down a moment.
I think what's cool about this is the dad, he is happy. He is in this very similar emotional state to Annalise and her dad were in the first scene when it was positive. And his son, Brian, he is never in that place. He stays tense the whole time. But the music throws you. So you come in,
The
you hear the
water in front
dad,
of
dad
us.
sounds happy.
Hey, bud.
The music sounds happy,
don't understand
and it's
what's
music
happening.
that we've heard before.
I'm here, at Grace's pond.
You're real?
Real enough.
And it gives
I'm
us
sorry.
a moment, even though things
Why
were
the
tense
hell is he
before,
here?
we have a moment to think, okay, this is going to work out. But this time when we hear it, we add a spooky swell that comes into it.
I'm sorry. Why the hell is he here?
He saw my dad come out of the lake.
Hey, you! Get out of here! Whoa!
And then that music goes away and we're just in the dark music. So to recap what's happening, first we have a situation that plays out twice in two different ways in two different scenes. The first time we play a cue that matches the emotion of the scene. And the second time we're in that situation, we reuse that first cue, which makes it seem like the scene's going to play out in the same way. And then when it doesn't, it also heightens the contrast between the way it played out the first time and the way it played out the second time. So that's all the specific tips I have right now. I think the biggest takeaway of all of this is that when you're editing your music from a library, you don't have to take a music cue at face value. You can split things up, mash things together. Often I find a cue that has a part I really love, but other parts I don't like. And many times I can just use the part I like and mix it with other parts of other songs that I like. Once you get good at this, and once you can break cues apart into different pieces, you have a lot of freedom to reuse music in a way that makes it sound more like it was composed. I am Andrew Wardlaw, producer of the Lamplight Radio Play, and thanks for watching.